Hey Puzzy Buddies, it's Bree. Okay, now, Puzzy Buddies, is it cringe or is it adorable? I need y'all to tell me. Now, today's puzzle, it comes from Ravensburger. This is the Yzma puzzle, part of the Disney Villianous collection. Today, I wanted to do something a little different. So if you watch me, I know you have to know who Karen Puzzles is. But back in 2021, she did a challenge on her channel where she did a 1,000-piece puzzle, 100 random pieces at a time. So I went ahead and taped off the measurements of the puzzle. When it's complete, it's supposed to be 27 by 20 inches. So I marked that in washi. And then I went ahead and divided the pieces up into these little cups. I was having trouble counting on camera. I don't know what it was, but I was struggling. So I turned the camera off, finished putting the pieces in the cup, and then I got to the end and I realized something went wrong somewhere because it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. Technically, it's 1,008 pieces. So by the end, I should have had enough to go one last time in each cup because I was doing 10 at a time, and I should have had 8 left over to kind of divvy up between the cups. That was not the case. So every cup has about 100 pieces in it. The precise number isn't, that's besides the point. So the whole idea behind this challenge is to take a pile of pieces, get the 100, get them all on the board about where they're supposed to be, and build as much as possible before you move on to the next pile. And in doing so, you're supposed to be able to kind of like slowly build the puzzle, a little random bit at a time, and watch it all come together. So I got started on my first cup. I pulled out the border pieces and I tried to see if any of them fit together. And then I started with placing the inner pieces. Now the first 100, it's a little rough. I made a little progress and I thought that adding the second 100 would help kind of orient things. And you will see there are lots of jump cuts in this video. I usually try to let the video play out, just fast forwarded with the time lapse. You'll understand why pretty soon there's so many cuts in this video. But just so you know, the sped up version of this video without the cuts was 55 minutes long, with it being sped up. So yeah, we had to make some cuts. So I've moved on to my second cup. We're working with 200 pieces now. And at first I was just kind of picking them out of the box, but then I decided to go ahead and do a flip of all of them and try to see what I could do with the border, of course. Now around here is where I realized that I may be in trouble. There's 3 things happening here. 1, all of the picture frames. All of the individual images are surrounded by their own frames. 2, the details are very, very small on the pieces. And 3, it's pretty dark. So I was spending a lot of time just picking up pieces, staring at them, staring at the box, staring at the pieces, staring at the puzzle board, staring at the box. It was a lot of that. So I'm adding my third 100 set now. And I decided to go ahead and pull the border out and put it on a separate tray because I was getting some pieces connected and I just wanted to get them out the way, keep them safe to themselves. And now I have this growing pile off to the left of unidentifiable pieces. They're just like vaguely dark or dark with like a little bit of a detail to it, or just pieces of a picture frame with nothing else really to go off of. And the frames are not all unique. The frames kind of repeat within the image. So even if you are able to identify what kind of pattern that frame is, you don't necessarily know which picture it belongs to. Once I realize that I can't do much else, I go ahead and move on to the next pile. So I'm adding in my fourth 100 set, or we're at about 400 pieces now. And I'm spending a lot of time looking at the box, trying to pick out little details. When it comes to working on the inner pieces, it was definitely easy to pull out those kind of brighter sections. And then some of the pictures were easy to pull out of the individual images, but that's about it. So now I'm at the end of that 400. I have a growing pile of unknowns, and I'm getting some small sections together, but not nearly as much as I would have expected at this point. Here I am giving you a better look at what I can see at this point, so you can kind of understand what I'm working with. You can see there's lots of itty bitty details, there's a lot of similar colors, and just general kind of darkness. Now we're up to our 5th cup, so we're at 500 pieces. As you can see, I ended up pulling up the reference picture on my phone so I could adjust the brightness and zoom in some, so I could see what was going on. I was making a little bit of progress, but I have cut chunks of time where I'm doing absolutely nothing but staring because I couldn't see what was happening. And I'm not talking about not being able to see because of glare. Even what looks like a glare on the box, that's actually just the image. I can't see because everything is so dark and so small. You can see I even pulled out my phone flashlight at some point. I did as much as I could with what I had, and then I decided to move on to cup number 6, and then I knocked a cup over. But just for reference, this is what Karen's puzzle was looking like after 500 pieces. There is a huge difference here. Now, she does also have a little pile to the left of those like unknown pieces, but not nearly as many as I do. I thought that this would be easier for me because I'm doing an actual like image with, little bits and pieces and things, and her puzzle was a gradient. And I really feel like that should have been the case. Like, this should have been pretty easy for me, or at least easy in terms of this challenge, but it wasn't. I'm trying to make sense of the pieces I have on the board. I'm trying to get sections connected and try to determine what frame belongs to this picture versus that picture. And you can see that I'm getting like visibly stressed out. There doesn't seem to be any more that I can do with what I have, so again, I'm just moving on to the next cup. So now we have 600 pieces on the board, and I'm on my 7th cup. The border is starting to come together here, but I'm getting so tired and so frustrated. My head is starting to hurt, which I really don't believe should have been the case with this sort of puzzle. Around here is where I'm seriously debating just scrapping this whole video and DNFing the puzzle because I wasn't getting anywhere. Because I was on the verge of just flipping my whole table over, I decided to go ahead and stop there for the day. I came back the next day. I still have this huge pile of unknowns, which I'm realizing now, you can't even see how big my pile is. I have pieces going all around the whole left, right, and bottom of the border. I was just getting started for the day and I was already overwhelmed, and I was worried that the sleeves of my jacket would knock some pieces over. So I went ahead and just moved the pieces onto the little like sorting trays that I have. So I did one tray for the frame pieces, one tray for the vaguely purpley blackish sort of dark pieces, and then I did one tray of that big border around Yzma's big picture frame. I'm adding in my 8th cup. I've got the border going. And around here is where I can finally say, oh, there's that piece, like as I'm flipping over the pieces in the new cup. I'm able to get some little sections completed. I'm still struggling, but now I'm getting some of the frames to connect to each other, so I'm feeling like the slightest, littlest glimmer of hope. I hadn't even bothered to try to start putting that big frame together because I just knew it was going to be a lot. We're down to the last 2 cups. So I'll go ahead and add in my 900, what do I call it? My 9th cup. We're up to 900 pieces. That's the point I'm making. The border is almost done, so I went ahead and added that bottom part that connects to the big gray like podium to the board. And then I get a couple of frames / images like mostly done, so that felt really good. And I'm adding in as much as I possibly can before I move on. Now I'm adding in my last cup, the last 100 pieces. Now, when Karen was adding in her last 100 pieces, this is what her puzzle was looking like. It was 90% done. There's a few missing spots here and there. It's very satisfying. You know that she's going to put in those last pieces. You know exactly where they go. It looks very nice. That is not what my puzzle looks like. But at this point, at least I know that I have all the border pieces. So I went ahead and started piecing that together. I went ahead and added them to the board, starting off with that podium section that I already have, and then working around from there. Oh my gosh, working around from there. I will say that this part was pretty satisfying because everything was getting connected finally. I was watching all the insides kind of get smushed together and connecting where they should go. And now this is what it's looking like with the border completely done and, you know, roughly 920 pieces at play. I still have some in that last cup I haven't sorted through yet. And then, yeah, I still have all of these trays of pieces still left to go. Yeah. So I'm finishing off with what's left of that last kind of round of pieces. I'm much more familiar with the image now, so it's a little easier to spot like where pieces go, but it was still a lot of dark pieces, so I dumped them out and started working on what I already had just floating around on the board. I got through most of Yzma's statue award. I don't know what that is actually. That statue thing. I got through most of that and some of that podium. And then I decided to go ahead and move on to the frame that surrounds that main picture of Yzma. There is some color and texture differences around that frame, especially with like where there's candles versus where there's more shadow. So that did help quite a lot. And then in getting that big Yzma's frame done, some of those surrounding picture frames are also getting put together, so that was really good. So now I'm moving on to the giant tray of random frame bits. You'd think that everything would be like real smooth, real easygoing at this point, that it wouldn't really take a whole lot because the frame is mostly done already. But no, it took me a while still. Trying to figure out which pattern was on the piece and then which division of frames it belongs to. And then of that division of frames, which picture does it belong to? Because a lot of the pieces I didn't have much to work with. As in, like, there wasn't enough else on that particular piece to give me any more information about where it might go. But then I finally got rid of all the frame bits, and so all the frames were put together for the most part. All that was left was where Yzma and like her shadows and the other objects were coming out of the frames. And then I got most of the podium done. And then next was the tray that I was looking forward to the least. It was that tray of just purple and darkness that made up like the middle and the bits of brown. So I had to resort to piece sorting. Now, there's nothing wrong with piece sorting, especially when you're down to like the last 50 pieces. You're not really sure where things go. You've got a little piece of this, a little piece of that. Piece sorting is perfectly fine in that instance. But having to piece sort or feeling like I had to piece sort when I have closer to 150, maybe 200 pieces left, that's a bit ridiculous. Especially because I really truly felt like there was no other way that I was going to get this done. Now, I know I've been kind of complainy this whole video, but let me try to explain more like why I was having such strong feelings about this puzzle. In my last video, I asked you guys, who's your favorite Disney villain? Now mine is Yzma, and Emperor's New Groove is literally my all-time favorite movie. I bought this one as a birthday gift to myself, and I was really excited going into this because I finally had a chance to do this puzzle. I was thinking it should be pretty fun, the image is fun, I love that movie, it has some of the funny scenes on the picture, so I was like really looking forward to this one. I went into this knowing that this puzzle might be a little bit tricky because the border is basically all the same and then all those picture frames. But I have zero problem with a puzzle being tricky. What I do have a problem with is a puzzle being frustrating. This border, which most people would probably find like pretty annoying, was actually one of my favorite parts. Yes, it was like pretty samey all around, but there were some color differences between like the areas that were more in shadow and the areas that were brighter. And then the parts where like Yzma and the podium thing kind of like come out of the border. So it wasn't really hard to put together like at all. My main issue is that they chose an overall image that has a lot of smaller images in it onto very tiny pieces, which means that the details on the pieces had to be very small. If these pieces were 2 times or even just like 1.5 times the size that they were, sure, the puzzle would be kind of large, but it would be much easier to see. And so much of the puzzle was just so dark. And trust me, I get that they were showing shadows and then some of the lighter places where there's candles. And I even understand that the Emperor's New Groove, like the color palette of the movie overall, is fairly muted. I get that. But that could have been reflected in the puzzle design in a better way. So now the pieces are dark and tiny, and there's no reference poster. Ravensburgers don't come with posters, so you have to look at the box the whole time if you want to see what you're trying to put together. And the box is the size of my torso. I'm not even exaggerating. The box is huge. So having to move that whole puzzle lid or the whole box around your table or whatever space you're working with, it gets in the way. It slows you down. This is some footage of the finished picture. As you can see, even though there's so much like darkness and shadow and there's so small details, the image was printed very well. It's not blurry, it's not pixely. But if I had known going into this that this was going to be the experience I was going to have, I wouldn't have bought this. This is an example of a piece that's both dark and very detailed. Can you tell like what this is or roughly where it's supposed to go? Probably not. And now here's 2 more pieces that look pretty similar. They look like they belong in the same kind of area. No. One goes to that podium stand, and then one is like some scenery in the background of one of the pictures. And this isn't even like a skit or anything. I literally couldn't even tell where I had pulled these pieces from when I was trying to put them back in the puzzle because it all kind of looks the same. My camera was being weird. It kept like automatically trying to turn the flash on and then it would turn itself off. It wouldn't let me fix it, but you guys get the point. Let me know down in the comments, would you have finished this? Honestly, if I wasn't recording, I don't know if I would have. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you're liking the content. We've hit 10 subscribers, so thank you guys so much for your support. I'll see you on the next video, hopefully with, nicer things to say.